And here we are, live on air.
But, we're not starting yet.
No, in a moment. It says.
Sorry, because we can't be early. We can't. We really can't be early. And
see, let me add that.
That's the rules. Yeah.
So, I'm in the office because I have all this cool stuff there. But you know what else I have in the office now?
A cat.
I know.
Office cat.
I have a remote. It's actually lying too far away for me to get it now, but a remote with which I can start, and I have already done that. A quiet recording sign that is now above the door when you enter our offices, and that's now lit up. It is nice. It is absolutely awesome. And oh wait. No, not that one. That one. It's the white one there.
So
no, it's in the hall. Oh, in the hall. That one.
So you're saying we should all get one?
It's yeah, but I mean it's a click on, click out. It's it's like
nice.
It's pretty low tech, but it does allow me to actually enable a quiet we're recording thing, and it's awesome. I mean. I was doing a podcast 4 weeks ago, and somebody thought it was a perfect moment to start drilling into a wall in the other office, because they didn't know that I was recording. I was like, this needs to stop.
Yeah. So as I've probably said before, my home office is in our garden shed, and during winter time, it's quiet around here because the kids are playing inside. But I think I should get something like this for the summer.
Yeah, you might need it, or you might hope that at that point you're allowed to go back to the office.
Oh, I do definitely hope that. But as a wise man once told us, hope is not a strategy.
Yeah. Oh, he's so right. Still, if you don't know what we're referring to, Google "Hope is not a strategy" Yoast Con, and you'll see a perfect talk by Chris Lemma. That is now 6 years ago, I think.
Wow.
Yeah. Yeah, 20. No, not yet. Is it 4 years ago? Was it 2017?
Might be. No, wasn't it our 5-year anniversary?
First one. Yeah.
I think it's yeah. 6
Boy,
years
we're
ago.
Getting old.
Yeah, it's also 4 o'clock, so let's start.
Right. Yes. Let me disable this sticker that says we'll start in a moment, and then you can go to the next slide. So we no longer say that we'll start in a moment. We will start in a moment, because first I want to quickly introduce you to our 2 speakers for today. Faces you've obviously seen in the past months in this webinar, because this is a monthly thing, and if you're joining for the first time, put it on your schedule, because we'll be back next month again. So the first speaker I would like to introduce is the one and only Mr. Jono Alderson, joining us for all the things technical and everything you ever wanted to know about SEO. And Joost de Valk, founder of Yoast, and, well, the other half, because Jono, as much as he thinks he knows, still misses some sweet spots. Joost knows the rest, so have fun with them.
Thanks, Taco.
Oh God, Taco! It's becoming more and more fun to hear this stuff and laugh about the ridiculousness of it all. Okay, so we have a lot to get through, and at the same time, not all that much, because nothing is ever new. But we have Google News. Let's go through it. Oh, it helps if I go in the right direction. Google launched a new tool this month called Question Hub. It's apparently only accessible when you're in the US, so we actually don't get to look at it, do we, Jono?
Sadly not, though I'm a little underwhelmed by this. I think there are limited practical applications of this. So I don't. Do we have any visuals of this, or we just?
I don't think I actually do have visuals. No, sorry. We will provide links.
So sometimes when you search for something really weird or really niche, you might get a little box in the search results that says, we don't have any good results for this query. That's relatively new. That's only been in for a couple of months, I think. So what this is for cases where that's happening, Google saves those queries. And if you log into Question Hub through your Google search account and Google thinks you're relevant and your business is relevant, they'll ask you to write content for those queries, which sound on the surface like quite a good way of shortcutting keyword research, like finding out what you should be writing about. But these queries are going to be super niche and super specific because they're questions that there's no good answer to on the whole of Google. So I don't think this is going to be like game-changing content strategy. But if you're really short of ideas on what to write, it might be worth going and having a look through some of these unanswered questions. We'll see. I don't know if it'll get beyond the US, but it's quite interesting.
Okay. I'm very curious myself on where this will go, but we'll see soon enough. Google launched something else called subtopics, which it's weird to me because they've talked about this, but the fact that they would call something subtopics feels so very weird. But they have this great video of how it works, and let me see if I can start this.
That's not very video-y, is it?
No, it's not. It's not very video-y, but I can tell you why it's not very video-y. No, I can't actually tell you why it's not very video-y. No, it won't work.
Oh well, we'll talk it through then.
Yeah. So basically, what it says and what it shows is if this video worked on my machine, and this is more my problem than the videos, is that Google basically divides a search result page into different sections and says, hey, we know that you're searching for this. We know that for this thing that you're searching for, there are 3 subtopics. So basically, we're only going to show you 3 results from each or something like that.
And I think they had an example of something like exercise bikes, which is obviously topical at the moment. So if I search exercise bikes, Google are smart enough to understand that there's quite a lot of diversity behind that. I might mean different things. I might mean a cheap exercise bike. I might mean an exercise bike that I can get tomorrow. I might mean a top-of-the-line exercise bike, like a Peloton. I might mean an exercise bike suitable for small space. And what they're saying is they can understand that these are distinct topics and types of thing, so it doesn't make sense for them just to rank them all in the same way. For that search result, they should say, actually, we maybe ought to have 1 or 2 of each of those categories represented. So the practical implications of this is if you're running a business trying to sell exercise bikes or to try and compete in that search results, you're not competing for a place in the top 10 results. You're competing for maybe 1 or 2 slots of only 1 or 2 slots that you can compete in. If you're an e-commerce site and some of those slots are educational content, you're really going to struggle. So you've got to be super niche and super focused.
Yeah, it's also it's very interesting to look at because in a way this has existed for some things for quite a long time already, because Google was never going to show more than 3 comparison sites in most results, for instance. So this already existed for quite a few different groups of sites, but they now seem to have built this in a bit more broadly.
Yeah, you see it quite aggressively in areas like health, where if I search for the name of a medical treatment, they're very careful that they don't just show a result of 10 places you can buy this tablet. They're very careful to say, okay, we ought to balance information with e-commerce, and we're seeing more and more of that.
Yeah, which makes sense, right? And it also makes sense to actually drive people to more specifically query so that they can give them even better results.
Absolutely.
This was actually interesting. Google's My Business had new performance reporting. It actually looked quite good.
Yeah, which is reassuring because for a long time, I know a lot of people have had complaints about it not being great and it being quite hard to understand how well your Google My Business profiles perform, how well that connects to real world outcomes like phone calls and things. So Google investing some time in improving that reporting is really great. It did, reading through some of the analysis, it looks like this is a bit early days. Like some of the metrics aren't great or they're missing, but it looks like a step in the right direction to really help you understand, okay, I have a brick and mortar business. How is my web presence connecting to that in driving demand and awareness and attention, which can only be a good thing.
Yeah. Okay. And now we have a whole set of things that I'm going to preempt by saying, okay, so this is the sort of stuff that comes up on SEO news sites every day. And it honestly is not of the highest, importance in many ways. So Google brought back the request indexing tool. This is a tool that you can use to request indexing of a particular URL. And some of the SEO groups that I'm in went absolutely nuts over this because they'd missed it so much and they'd needed it so much. And I just go, why? You don't need this tool other than for testing stuff. Because you shouldn't need this tool. Every decent platform out there with a decent SEO plugin, whether that is WordPress with Yoast SEO or something else, should generate an XML sitemap. And that XML sitemap should go to Google, should be pinged to Google when it's updated. And then you don't need this thing at all. So why is it there? I don't get it.
Yeah, I think there's an awful lot of SEOs spending an awful lot of time thinking they're doing useful work by pressing this button a lot on URLs, hoping that it might mean Google picks up their pages faster or something. Even though Google say when you press the button, this won't make anything happen faster or change anything. It's a very edge case testing tool that the SEO community seems to think is much more important. So yeah, if you've got a decent setup, especially a Yoast XML setup, then you really don't need to care about this.
No. You should not. And then we have the stuff that is always funny. John Mueller, who is a great Googler who answers a lot of questions from the public. And then every once in a while, one of his answers will suddenly be news to people. So apparently this was news. Sites that actually do stuff badly can still rank. Well, you know what? If they're relevant for the query, and Google knows that they're relevant for the query, then Google will show them. It's how it works. It's not news.
And this frequently comes up when you're saying, well, why does my competitor outrank me? Why do I need to make my site fast, or why do I need to optimize my meta descriptions? My competitor hasn't done that, and yet maybe they haven't. But maybe they are better in some other area, or maybe you're weaker in a different area. And it's a melting pot of all these different factors. And of course, the answer is try and improve on all of them. And if one competitor is doing fine without having done one of them, that's not a good reason for you not to optimize that, because you're competing on all these different dimensions in all these different search results and verticals and types of content. Win across all of it.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more. And don't focus too much on one specific tactic, because honestly, it's not focusing on any single aspect of anything is usually bad for you. So don't.
And as you look more and more at where SEO is going, it looks less and less like a discipline in its own right, and more about the choice of where should I invest and what should I improve and what do I do next, which channels should I put budget in. Make those smart decisions on where should you invest in which area, not overdoing one bit.
So, and I'm saying this in all earnest, honest ways. This is 1996 wanting its news back. I wrote a post about paying bloggers to write links in 2004 on a Dutch blog, saying this is not just against Google's guidelines. This is against most advertising guidelines in most countries, in Europe at least. Because if you're paying people to advertise for you and you're not disclosing it, you're working against advertising guidelines, and in some countries even breaking the law. So don't do this. It's very basic stuff. And for all of that, we have something very cool, and it's called our SEO for Beginners training. So if any of the stuff that we've told you in the last few minutes is news to you, that's not a bad thing, not at all. But we have a free SEO for Beginners training that can fix that. and that can actually help you understand these things, and hopefully will also get you to the level where you go like, hey, I understand that all of these tiny things matter, but none of them individually matter all that much. And then Google launched a new performance report for Google News in Google Search Console, and it's actually quite good.
Yeah, surprisingly. No, this is great. This is the latest improvement to Google Search Console. We've had a lot recently. It feels like they're evolving this a lot into a big old dashboard of everything that's going on. The big question that remains for us that we were chatting about earlier is we're still not entirely sure what Google News is, and I don't think much of the SEO industry is either.
No, so there's a news tab in Google. That is definitely Google News. But whether that is the only thing reflected here or not is not something I understand.
No, because, so there's quite... sorry, you go.
No, yeah, there's Discover, which they feature separately, which is... Well, I can see that. But quite often in normal Google search results, you'll also see news results. And whether they feature that in this report or in the search results report, who knows? Maybe in both.
Yeah, I think the days of Google News being a separate, discrete thing are well and truly gone, and it's very prominent in the especially for trending topics. You'll see those carousels of news results. That's definitely considered Google News, even though it's not in the news tab. So yeah, it's worth having a rummage around in this report, because you might not think or know that you're in Google News, but you're going to have some data here for when you've published stuff that's turned up there.
Yeah, one of the things I want to know is if for every site that has this in Google Search Console, should they submit an XML sitemap?
Oh, that's interesting.
It's one of those questions that I want to ask at some point of a Googler. And they also, in related news, even more Search Console improvements, they updated the index coverage stuff.
Oh,
you kind of like this.
Yeah, this is great. So if you've not played with this, there's a big section of Google Search Console which tells you about errors, warnings, and informational things they've found on your site. So it will say, we found 30 pages which have a 404 error. We found 100 pages which are a bit slow, and all sorts of these different categories. And until recently, about half of those categories were just useless. So on Yoast.com, we had something like 20,000 URLs which were reported as a search anomaly. And that's all it tells you. It doesn't tell you what that means. It doesn't tell you what they've found. There's no way to you look at them, they look fine. And every site we looked at had stuff like this, where it's just impenetrable. They've changed it, they've fixed it, they've relabeled a bunch of the errors, and now it makes sense. Now you can go in and say, okay, this page has an issue with the canonical tag. I understand, I can fix it. It's really, really great. If you haven't explored in there, go have a click around. It's really interesting.
Yeah, it's very cool. So this was our Google News. And normally after our Google News, we would go to our Microsoft News. Except that Microsoft has not done anything newsworthy in the last month.
I think they all must have taken December off, right? Protracted holiday.
Good. I'm not entirely sure whether to say good on them or shame on them.
That's true, because we're saying that there's a lot of news here that isn't really news around Google and a bit old school. It's actually quite nice for Microsoft to say we don't need to repeat the basics. Fair enough.
Yeah. So we do have WordPress news. There was a huge discussion about page builders and performance. A topic you like a lot, don't you, Jono?
Yeah, I find this fascinating. So this is a really difficult conversation for WordPress to have, because part of WordPress's promise is go and build a website and you do anything you want with it and it'll be flexible and great and awesome. And that's equally the promise of WordPress's competitors, the Wixes, the Squarespaces. They say, come and drag and drop and do the things and it'll be flexible and awesome. Except if you're using a page builder plugin in WordPress, you're almost certainly compromising on page speed. Because the way they work is every trade-off you get for flexibility and drag and drop and interact and tailor my page comes at a performance cost. And it's really hard to get around that because of the nature of how these things work. So what we're starting to see in the background is this story emerge where Gutenberg and the Gutenberg editing, the block editing process, is starting to eat into some of that territory and to be the go-to approach for creating flexible, fluid, dynamic drag and drop interfaces. With a catch.
And the catch is?
It takes forever to do it. So this article is really interesting. They were saying something like they used the Gutenberg block editor to make this fancy homepage, and it was great, and it was much faster than if they'd done it in a page builder. However, it took about 12 hours to build it rather than maybe the 20 minutes it would have taken in a page builder. So it can be faster, and the engineering quality is better, but not for real humans, certainly not yet. But it's a step in the right direction, and hopefully all of this will consolidate. The page builders will start to use the block editor behind the scenes to power their infrastructure, and everything will be fast. We'll get there.
That would be good, yeah. In related news, one of the things we're waiting for in the page builder infrastructure that WordPress is building within WordPress itself is the project called full site editing. Now, we're still not entirely sure how this is going to work yet, but what it should be at some point is an editing environment where you can really, like in any page builder, build your site using blocks. And it's coming closer. We're getting closer to something that actually might work. So there's a block-based version of 2021 that's nearing readiness. Actually, some of the people on our WordPress core team are working on stuff like that. And I gotta say, I have high hopes for what it could be, but at the same time, I think we're quite a bit away of making this usable by normal users. But then, related as well, we had some quite encouraging news this week with a new president in the White House and a new whitehouse.gov, which runs WordPress. It used to under the last president, and it runs WordPress again under this president, which is awesome. And they built a new site in 6 weeks, and it uses Gutenberg for everything. And it's a big site. It's not like a small thing. It's a big site. So that is really great to see, and it has everything. It has good accessibility, it has dark mode, it has loads and loads of great features. I really like it, actually.
Yeah, it's a really good example of what WordPress can do. I know there's a lot of perception that like WordPress is just a blogging platform, and that it's always a challenge to convince people that it can be a cutting edge CMS, because there aren't many great examples of people really doing that. This is so wonderful, and for them to have turned it around so quickly, and I presume they're under immense pressure and constraints and security restrictions and all sorts of other things we haven't seen. This is great work, really great.
And of course, we were very happy to see that with all the changes happening in US government, the chosen SEO plugin by the White House is not changed and is still ours. It was very good to see that. But no, it is really impressive. I'm curious to see what they'll end up doing with this over the next 4 years. I hope it'll be able to, keep on looking good forever. I see Philip saying in the comments on YouTube that he put that through PageSpeed Insights and it doesn't look very good. The large visuals are going to hurt. and
it's not a perfect site, and I imagine they've got more work to do, but for the constraints they were under, they've done a good job. But there's a million small things wrong with it that they could improve, and arguably they should, but I'm sure it's on their roadmap.
And then next, this was a topic of a bit of debate in the WordPress community, which is always fun when the WordPress community thinks it needs to debate stuff. WordPress.com now offering website development. And I'm honestly not entirely sure what it is that they offer. Because this service is in beta and they basically build a site for you in 5K. And I'm not entirely sure that what they're building, because it doesn't look like they're designing a new theme for you. It looks like they're setting up your site for you and maybe helping you figure out some layouts, etc. But it doesn't look like they're necessarily setting up, building a whole new theme, because the examples that they give, even on this thing here, are existing themes.
Yeah, this feels more like kind of hand-holding consultancy to help you work out what you want and then configure it for you rather than building stuff. But as you say, who knows, right? And it's a strange proposition because at the moment you've essentially got WordPress.com, which is I want an off-the-shelf product that is simple and just to get me going, or WordPress.org, which is I want to roll my sleeves up and manage my own site and customize it and make decisions. It's not clear quite where this fits in that jigsaw.
No, well, it probably does fit into the I don't want to actually do it myself corner, which is, well, sort of fine, right? I mean, people need to be able to say, hey, I don't want to do this myself, and I'm perfectly okay with that. But yeah, we'll see where this goes. I'm curious to see some sites that have come out of it. I don't know where it'll take us. That was our WordPress news. We do have some Yoast news because, unlike Microsoft, we are developing a whole lot of things. So let's go through them quickly. In Yoast 15.6, we added Norwegian, which is or support for Norwegian word forms, which is just one of the many, many languages that we now support, where we can really help you write better because we understand that language even better than we do language in general. And we added estimated reading time, which is something that I'm really a fan of myself to show to users, because I really like seeing, like, is this going to be a very long article or a very quick one to scan through? And if it sets 25 minutes when I see an estimated reading times thing, I'm not always as likely to actually engage with it than when it says 3, 4, 5 minutes, and I can actually quickly go through it. In 15.7, we did we do anything? I don't know. That's coming up, isn't it? No, that's today.
Yeah.
I don't even know anymore.
Today's another language, isn't it? I've lost track. Yeah, that we've done.
Today was Turkish. Now I know again.
That's
That was it. Okay. We did some other stuff, but I want to talk about this because this is the real cool stuff. So you'll remember that last year we bought a plugin called Duplicate Post, and we renamed it to Yoast Duplicate Post because it's funny and it rhymes. But one of the things I really, really wanted to build, and the reason why we bought this plugin and brought its developer Enrico on board, is this rewrite and republish feature. So one of the things that we do a lot on Yoast.com is that we write content that we think is awesome. You might agree, you might not agree. I don't really care. We want to hear it if you have improvements, of course, but we think it's awesome. And then a year on, that content is old and needs to be rewritten. Now, what you would do in the past is you would take a plugin like Duplicate Post, you would duplicate the post, and then when you're done, you would either copy that entire thing over the old post and hit update, or you would publish it, delete the old one, do some renaming of slugs and stuff, and it was all annoying. Messy, yeah. And now what we've done is we've made this simple. You can now say, okay, I'm going to rewrite this, and then you get a draft in a new post where you can do an entire draft process. And then once you hit publish, it'll actually replace the old one, and nothing will break. It's a very simple process of actually being able to completely rewrite a post and use a proper editorial system, etc.
It's nice. It's one of the things that's always surprised me. One of WordPress's weaknesses is a lack of kind of editorial flow management. And this idea of, I want to take this post, put it over here, do some work to it, and now put it back without having to unpublish it or delete all of that mess, and you end up creating dead ends and 404s. Like this is elegant. Really nice.
And it also, because it ties into Yoast SEO, we also don't create unnecessary redirects, and so it's all nice and clean, and it works. I'm very happy with it. And what else did we do? Oh yeah, I recorded a podcast, as I do at the moment, with Jason Bernard, and I have to say, I think this one was good. It was an awesome episode. Jason shared a lot of good things about brand search and how you optimize for people searching for your brand name or your own name, which is also something very, very fun to work with and optimize for. So
I've not listened to that one yet. I'm looking forward to it.
Yeah, you should. It was a really good conversation, and a lot of tiny tidbits on things that people can do, etc. So it's good fun. And we have coming soon a new structured data training course, which I'm really happy with, because if you've been looking at this webinar recently in the last few months, you know that there's a lot of schema stuff happening, and schema is becoming more and more important, etc. And it becomes more important for people to understand what structured data is and why schema is important and how it helps you improve your site. So we have the Understanding Structured Data course on Yoast Academy, our Yoast Academy platform, and a Structured Data for Beginners training course as well. That is the beginning part of that. We've also rolled our Academy product into Yoast SEO Premium. So if you've bought Premium, you get all of our Academy for free, or the other way around. If you've bought Academy, you get Yoast SEO Premium. But it means that for $89 a year, you get access to all of our SEO courses, and I think that it's just really cool. So yeah, it's a lot of cool stuff in there. And then we had some other news in the funny bits department.
And finally,
Shopify wants to hire 2021 engineers in the year 2021. I thought this was a good thing, though, a good way to highlight the fact that you're hiring a lot of people. It was pretty good PR.
Yeah, clever, and I'm fascinated to watch what they're doing. Like, we see such a push from them to really take on the e-commerce space. And I know that they're not WordPress, and we should be backing WooCommerce, etc. But there's space in this environment for many players, and they are doing some really good stuff. They're building a really strong platform. They're investing a lot in SEO, which is nice to see, and tackling some kind of legacy complaints that people have had. All look to them for really making a splash. This is big.
Yeah, it's also, I think it's good for people to realize what this means. I mean, if you look at this, and I was recently looking at Wix as well, who now employ over 3,000 people, realize that WordPress core is built by a couple of hundred people at maximum, who are spending a couple of hours a week, and only a handful of people really who are full-time on this. So Shopify hiring 2,000 people in this year to work on its product. How does WooCommerce compete with that? WooCommerce has maybe like 50, 100, maybe 200 developers working on it within Automatic, but that's not 2,000. That is really hard to compete with. So I'm curious where this will go and what this means, but I'm going to guess we'll find out. But it is interesting to see. And then we had DuckDuckGo, something else than Google and Microsoft that you can search on. 100 million searches a day. That is actually meaningful amounts of traffic.
Yeah, and it's nice to see. It's nice to see Google and Bing have a meaningful underdog. Obviously, that it's not as feature-rich, the algorithm isn't quite as clever, but their privacy-centric proposition is really strong. You will not be tracked. We will not store or use your data. We will not fill your machine with cookies, etc. It's a good counterpoint to Google's, we'll give you incredible results, but at the expense of all of your data entering Google's big, scary ecosystem. I'm excited to see where their product roadmap goes as they grow and get more people on board.
Okay. And with that, I think it's time to take some questions and tell people that we will be doing this against next month, but we'll tell them that at the end, won't we, Taco?
Yes, absolutely. Before we have some time for questions, and I'm sure everyone already wrote down the next date, the 23rd of February. So I'm going to show your faces a little bigger on the screen. Let's start with an easy one, and that is by RVing Live the Dream.
I saw that one, and yes, I can answer that. Really, you're going to highlight it, right? There you go.
Yes, I am, and it's most definitely right here.
Yeah. Do we need to be pro? No. duplicate post is free and will remain free. And it's one of our gifts to the WordPress community. So enjoy it.
That sounds good. So you only need Yoast SEO free and duplicate posts free in order to use all of this.
Well, yes, but even duplicate post by itself will just work.
Wow, that's a good deal. All right, I think I'll get that. Let me get to the next question, and that is by Tom Vledder, and that I want to highlight this as well. Yes, Joost, you mentioned it is useful for normal users while discussing the blog-based version of 2021. Am I a normal user?
So, we're not there yet. I want it to be, but we're not there yet. Honestly, I think that full site editing has great potential, and we will be able to build something really cool with it. Whether we will actually get there this year, I highly doubt. And it's January, so saying that is saying something, I guess. But it is very hard to make this easily usable by people and make it understandable, and make everybody happy with it. I don't know what upgrade paths will look like yet. I don't know how it will work with existing themes yet. So there's a lot of questions that I have, and we'll have to see. I'm worried about that a bit because I actually think that as a community, we have to prevent ourselves from not getting a second rift where you have like the pre-Gutenberg and the Gutenberg people, and then the full site editing and the non-full site editing people. I think that would be a shame. So
especially when Shopify is hiring 2,000 engineers and yada yada yada, we're gonna risk creating real people choosing other tools.
Yeah. So I think it has great potential. I'm not sure we're there yet.
So if people want to get involved and with early testing and all of that, is there a place where they should go?
Honestly, you probably know better than I do, Taco. Is that and the thing I would recommend right now is WordPress Slack, chat.wordpress.org.
Yeah, and I think to stay up to date on what's happening regarding full site editing, there's a nice resource that's called fullsiteediting.com that will showcase the current state. And I'm doing that off the top of my head, so I heard Jono clickety-clack on his keyboard. So.
Isn't that from our lovely colleague?
Well, yes, it is.
Yeah, that's Carolina. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay.
I think that's one of the go-to resources for the current state of things.
Cool. I haven't seen this. This is great. Really good resource.
It is good. Yeah.
All right.
Okay.
So there's another question coming in.
Hey, I know that. Marius. I know that person.
Yes.
Hi, Marius. Good to see you here. Marius, for those of you who don't know, is a true hero in the WordPress community, on the forums all the time and building the site health tool. Is what the editor flow from duplicate posts something you'd consider porting to core? Well, in general, I would consider porting almost everything to core that we build all the time. It's more like, do they want it? If they want it, we're happy to port it. And I agree that it's a pain point. I mean, it's just one of those things where the editorial flow is lacking.
There's an interesting broader conversation there where WordPress core is very hesitant to incorporate anything other than things which will help everybody universally. Like the whole premise is the core is very thin, and then you add on the plugins you need. And I think the argument we'd like to make is that if you're building and publishing a website full of content, you want people to read it. And in order to get people to read it, SEO is a big part of that. So it makes sense for SEO, or more of SEO, to be part of core. And then we can focus on doing the kind of the tailoring and the edge case and the config.
Well, and it's also something else is happening as well. More and more sites are becoming old or bigger. And so sites have not been around for a year or for 2 years anymore, but they've been around for a decade, and they have stuff that needs revision and stuff that there's a whole lot more process around websites now than there was a decade ago when most of the people in the WordPress community started coming into this. I published my first website on WordPress 15 years ago this April, and that website is still live. That website was yoastdevalk.nl that later turned into yoast.com. And, well, we're all still there. So that website is now 15 years old and has migrated and migrated and migrated all the time. And I think that one of the things that we have to acknowledge as a community is that this is becoming something that we need to take care of, that we need to think about. Like, these sites are coming along, and we need to help them in actually maintaining their site and make them look good.
All right. So a final call for everyone watching our live streams and on both YouTube and Facebook. If you have questions and you want them answered this month, this is your chance. Don't hesitate, type that question and we'll highlight it on screen and see what amazing answers we can provide. That said, I'm looking at a question that just came in. That's I will highlight it for you. Can I make backlink for CPA marketing? I'm not sure that's entirely related to what we're talking about today.
No, but I'm not even sure what he's asking, to be honest, Liton. Yeah, not sure, honestly.
All right, so if you can clarify that question, then please do so.
The question that by Mahesh that just come in. Actually, Mahesh, yes, that is quite possible to include link density. We already have this. So if you go to the posts overview and you toggle on the top right the screen options, you can see the number of incoming and outgoing links to your posts. So we have all these features already. And if there's more stuff around it that you want, we will happily show you. And Jono is searching for his link density in the meantime.
No, somebody asked a question about a stapler behind me. It's my wife's desk and it's covered in stationery. I have no idea what a swing line stapler is. But is it this? I don't know. Sorry, that's a bit off topic, isn't it?
Only slightly, but fun enough. All right, so Jono, I do have another question for you. Are backlinks still applicable for better ranking?
It's an interesting question. It's a contentious one. I think the general state of thinking is that having more links and having better links can definitely impact your ranking, your visibility, etc. However, and this is into opinion, I think the SEO community focuses on links far more than they should, and they ought to be focusing on product market fit and quality content and marketing. I think some of the interesting research we're seeing come out recently says that you need some links to get into Google and to get into maybe the first 50 results. But when you're starting to really compete, like in those top 10 slots, what you really need is a great website and great content and great user experience, and not to irritate and confuse people, and to have good prices and to be a good fit. So if you have some links and real sites are really genuinely endorsing your content and your message and your product, don't worry too much about getting more. There's far too much focus on links. Yes, you need some, you don't need any more.
The thing is that what you do need is a brand. And
yes.
and you can't build a brand without earning links in the process. But links are a byproduct. They're a byproduct of you doing good marketing and good PR. And You can't, SEO cannot live in a vacuum. You can't build a business by just doing SEO. You have to do everything that exists in terms of marketing to build that business. So you need to build that brand. You need to do marketing in general. And then links will follow if you do it right, because otherwise that means nobody's talking about you. So it's a result. And that's no follow links. Chris asking the question that Taco just highlighted is in that regard very interesting. If that link gives you traffic, then of course that link has value. Because
you're trying to rank higher to get traffic, to get people to your site to sell things. If you can just get them to your site through a link and sell things, you don't need the SEO bit. So of course they're valuable.
Yeah, I care about links deeply, but I care about links from a traffic perspective much, much, much more than I care about them from a this will help me rank better perspective. And of course, there are ways to look at this, and honestly, some of it is probably underestimated. I still think that a link from a site like The Guardian will help your site suddenly do that if it doesn't have links like that before. But that is because Google can sometimes elevate you into like, oh wait, they're actually trusted by bigger brands. But all of that should be a result of your good PR and your good marketing. It should not be the result of you going out and getting that link.
Yeah, I'm not even mentioning buying links here because that's a no-go.
You are buying.
Sure.
We talked about that in the beginning of it. I honestly, if in 2021 you're still thinking that you can buy links and you can get away with it, well, more power to you.
Talking about buying stuff, there's another interesting question that I'm sure you have an answer to. That's by Rodrigo. Is there a way to make ads have less impact on your website's loading time?
Yeah, this is a real challenge. So as Google makes performance more and more important, and now it's an explicit ranking factor and they're rewarding it, if you're a site that relies on ad revenue, it's really, really hard. So there are a few things you can do. One is so it depends on how your ad mechanism works. If you've got a system which does loads of header bidding and stuff that happens as the page is loading, that's going to be really hard to speed up because of the way it works. So look for different ways of serving ads. You can, depending again on the way it works, you could lazy load them. So you could wait until the page is loaded and then load the ads. But that might impact your ad revenue because your visibility is going to drop, your CPMs are going to drop. That's not good. The only real solution is for the ads themselves to be faster. And the ad ecosystem isn't great for that, obviously. There is one initiative which is starting to make a difference, which is AMP, which I talk about a lot. But the AMP format, which I'm sure you've all heard about far too much, there is an AMP for ads format. And what that's trying to do is enforce performance standards onto the ad industry so that adverts can't be 20 megabytes of animated GIFs, and they can't be JavaScript that loads of JavaScript that loads of JavaScript from 8 different domains. And we're starting to see some of the big networks like AdSense and similar use more and more, dedicate more and more of their inventory to AMP ads. So I think over the next few years, the ad themselves will get better, but in the meantime, all you can really do is pick your ad technology and maybe take a hit on revenue to load them a little bit later on the page. So it's a bit of a trade-off either way, I'm afraid. Sorry.
Yeah, as someone who browses the web with an ad blocker all the time, I don't even see them anymore. And I think I'm not alone.
So I think we have a very specific question coming in, and I'm not sure we can answer that because you SEOs tend to answer with "it depends." So let's take a quick look. Question by Philistine. If you have I have two somewhat niche software products that make it hard to focus SEO efforts, blog articles, industry pages, etc. Would it be better to move the software products to their own websites?
In general, I'd say yes. So if they're truly different products that are not related, then yes. If they are somewhat related, then they might benefit from the joint power in a way. And you could build one brand as a website or as a software developer that has two products. There's companies out there like one of my favorite Mac software builders, Rogue Amoeba. They have like 7 or 8 different products that are all somewhat related, but they're very different at the same time, and they serve them all from one side, and that works. It really depends.
It's a question of brand, right? If people are shopping and buying your brand, then put them together. But if they're really only interested in the product that solves that problem, then make them separate, give them their own strategies, give them their own budgets, give them their own identities.
All right. So, Jono, I learned that you recently rebuilt a website to make it slightly faster.
Slightly faster. Yeah. Yep.
Yeah. So, is that built in WordPress still?
Yeah, so I'm technically on holiday at the moment, and because I can't go anywhere, I've spent the last few days rebuilding my own personal website because it was quite fast and quite good, but it's been irritating me for a while that it wasn't perfect, and now it's damn close. So yeah, I built that in WordPress. I built a theme from scratch, and I built it using the AMP WordPress plugin, which forced me to adhere to the AMP HTML standards, meant I couldn't use any nasty JavaScript, but also did some clever things like automatically shrunk my CSS and converted my image formats and all sorts of good stuff. It's now lightning fast. I'm really happy with it, and it was an interesting learning curve to, I haven't done it in a while, build a site completely from scratch. So that was really fun.
All right. I was hoping you were going to mention images somewhere in your answer, because that's a nice bridge to this question that just came in.
Isn't it just?
Yeah, because what are your thoughts and experiences with the WebP format for images regarding page speed?
So we have a very simple solution for this that I'm actually dead sure that Jono uses on his own site as well. You see, converting stuff to WebP is a lot of work, but we have this service called Cloudflare that we talk about on this webinar far too much
every month.
far too much for the fact that they're not paying us. But now what Cloudflare does is it will automatically turn all your PNGs into WebP files, and it'll serve it to every browser that supports it, which is a growing group, which is good. It's faster, it's lighter, it's great, and yeah, we love it.
Yeah, if you try and do that conversion yourself, there are drawbacks on every approach. You have to generate 2 sets of each image. You have to detect the browser support. That's all stuff that you don't really want your server to be doing. Just run it through Cloudflare. That said, there is a newer format than WebP, AVIF, which looks like that will really take the world by storm. It's still a bit experimental, but WebP is old news. But like, if you're still using JPEGs and PNGs, you're super slow. Definitely get on Cloudflare and take advantage of WebP.
All right, so I see that your site's now also been shared in the comments on
oh, that's nice.
Both YouTube and Facebook, because someone already requested to take a look at your site. So jonoalderson.com it is.
Nice. That's
and
how fast
with
WordPress
that,
can be.
Yeah, I would say that we're at the end of the webinar. Thank you, Joost, for helping me do this. We hope you all set a reminder, because we would very much like to see you again next month. Gather all your questions in the meantime, save them up, because we'd be happy to answer them. Ha! I said we, they are.
Well, actually, we should make you take some of these as well, because you can answer them just as well as we can.
Yep.
I will be on a webinar this Friday. For a hosting company, and that already scares the living crap out of me. So I'm not doing this in front of an SEO audience.
Let's share a link to that. That's we definitely need to put Techo in the spotlight.
All right. So thank you everyone for joining, and see you again on the 23rd of February 2021.
See you later.
See ya. Bye bye.